and I'm going to introduce Deirdre for you. Sorry, I just kind of spaced out in a minute. And I'm going to let her introduce herself, and then we're going to get into some questions and let her explain how we can get you approved for your Social Security. All right? So I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you.
Deirdre.
Hi. I'm from Santa Rosa, by the way, so we do a lot of wine tasting. But anyway, my name's Deirdre McCaskill, and I'm a Social Security Disability Representative, and I'm accredited in that I have taken a federal exam for all of the rules under Social Security Disability law, and I've passed that exam. So I've shown proficiency that I'm supposed to know what I'm talking about every day. So welcome. And so we're going to answer some questions.
So I guess what we would start with, what our main question is, does lupus itself qualify you for disability? So we can start with that, and then we can go into it.
So specifically, lupus, there's a 5-step sequential evaluation that Social Security follows in order to award a person for SSI or SSDI. And inside of that 5-step sequential evaluation is step 3. Do you have a medical condition that's at a certain severity level that will meet or equal a listing? There's something called the listings of impairments on the internet. You can go there and find listing 1402, which is the listing of impairments for lupus. So under that criteria, there's a list that I made up that you can give to your doctor that shows exactly what the criteria is to meet or to equal that listing under the Social Security disability rules. So yes, you can get awarded for lupus if it's a severe enough condition and equates to that particular criteria in that listing. And if your doctor says so. So you want to give the listing to your doctor.
So do you want to go into kind of the big picture of what SSDI, SSI, it's all confusing, so kind of.
So SSI is a needs-based program, and anyone who has less than $2,000 worth of assets and does not have 2 residences, in other words, has a home and a car and less than $2,000 in the bank, they can qualify for SSI. And they would only want to qualify for SSI if they've never worked and paid into the Social Security disability system. So the reason that someone would not qualify for SSDI if they have not worked and paid into the Social Security system 5 out of the last 10 years. So over, like, between now and back 5 or 10 years, you have to work consistently, earning at least over like $1,000 a quarter. That's an estimate. It's probably more like $1,500 a quarter. So that's 4 quarters in a year. That would make you vested for the Social Security disability system. So under SSI, if you haven't worked and you haven't been able to work, you know, and some folks have never been capable of working. They try and they fail, or they volunteer. So if you have, and you're poor, I'm sorry to say that like that, but if you don't have a lot of assets and they're under $2,000, you can apply for disability under the SSI program, okay? The SSDI program you qualify for if you're vested. What makes you vested, as I said, is working 5 out of the last 10 years. So after you stop working, you're vested for the next 5 years. So if you don't file a claim or ask for disability during that 5-year window of time, you can lose it. Now you can also bring it back. There's some nuances to that, but I'm not going to go into that. So that's the major difference. The last thing I would say is SSI pays about $850 a month in California. SSDI can pay you anywhere from $1 up to $2,500 depending on how much you paid in.
Perfect. And somebody just asked, do you have to have organ involvement to be on to qualify for disability with lupus?
Typically, as I look at the listing, I believe it says yes. And what it says is involvement of 2 or more organ body systems, with one of the organ body systems involved to at least a moderate level of severity, and at least 2 of the constitutional symptoms or signs: severe fatigue, fever, malaise, or involuntary weight loss. And then there's a second section to that where you just have no organ involvement with just severe fatigue, fever, malaise, or involuntary weight loss, and severe compromise to activities of daily living, maintaining social functioning, concentration, pace, and persistence, and completing tasks, concentration, pace, and persistence. So the answer would be that in one part of the listing, yes, you have to have organ. In the other part of the listing, no, you do not. You have to just prove that you've got this severe symptoms.
Perfect.
Okay?
Okay. And then are people still able to work while they're on disability, or do you recommend that? What do you?
They are. Now let me let you know the nuances of that. Typically when you're on Social Security disability or SSI, you can work and earn up to no greater than about $1,100 a month and still maintain your monthly check. On the SSI program, you will get $65 waived of any income that you bring in each month, and then half of the money you earn will get offset against your check. So let's say you make $400. First $65 of that $400 is waived, and then the remaining 35 would be cut in half, and they would take 180 something out of your check, and so you get your $850, $870 less $150.
Okay.
Somewhere around in that. Okay, so that's the estimate. On SSDI, what happens is there's no offset whatsoever. You continue to get your checks, and you pop into what's called a 5-year window of eligibility.
Okay.
So that's another whole long story. But yes, you can continue to work and earn up to $1,000, and even work and earn up to $1,100, excuse me, while you're applying. I have many people who work a little bit while they're, because they have to live.
Yeah.
Okay?
That was another question, was
So,
can you work while you're going through the approval process?
yes, and I just had someone
So-
awarded just a month ago that was fully engaged in working to survive during the entire case.
Oh, wow.
And I had her case for 3 years. She worked the whole time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what is the process, and how long does it approximately take?
Okay.
Like if you want to apply for it, what do you do to start out with? What's the first step?
So the first step is you can do one or two things at the same time. You want to get all of your medical records back to the alleged onset date. In other words, you said there was a time where you no longer could earn $1,100 anymore. You no longer could work enough to sustain yourself. So the rules under Social Security are that you have to have a severe impairment. You have to have an impairment that you think is going to last 12 months. You have to have, it has to be severe, and then there's some other criteria. But for answering this question, the best thing to do is to file an application and have all of your records already in place. If you don't, Social Security will get all those records, but you want to file, and then you want to send your doctor a copy of the listings, asking him if you meet those listings. You want to give your doctor a function report. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm following the rules explicitly under Social Security, and I am using their rules against them to get you awarded. And typically you can get a person awarded within a few months, and in some cases if they're under 55, it's harder, and it may take up to 3 years. You may have to go to hearing. But with all of my cases, I approach the case where I'm trying to get it won in the first few months. And so most of the cases, because of the way that I know how to manage them, I do get them awarded right away within a few months. So if you've got lupus, you might have cognitive impairments. So you might not only have a rheumatologist or an autoimmune specialist, you might also need to get a psychiatric evaluation to show your brain's no longer functioning.
Wow.
Big one. So those two together, it's you're going to have all the information that you need. So I have documents that I can share on Facebook that lupus folks can take to their doctors. It's the listings of impairments, asking their doctors about whether you meet that or not, and on that it shows all this testing. So you have to make sure that in the records your doctor has done the lupus testing to confirm your condition and to go through all of the criteria of the classification for the diagnosis of systematic lupus, and there's a whole list on the internet that the listing includes, that I've included in my documents for your doctor.
Perfect.
So I haven't missed a thing, and you can't miss a thing. You have to tell Social Security, I'm disabled, this is why, and here's the objective evidence to back it up, and you're fine.
So now that we've gotten into all of this, can you explain to us a little bit the difference between an attorney and a disability representative, which...
Okay, well, there should be no difference, but there is a little bit of difference in that the attorney has more options with education. So the attorney, because he's gone to law school and passed the bar, he gets farmed automatically into becoming a direct pay representative with Social Security, in other words, authorized for Social Security to pay him when he wins, he or she, when he wins a case. In this system, a representative does not get paid, or an attorney does not get paid unless they win the case, okay? And that's up to the adjudicator. Now, the attorney, since they get kind of carte blanche, they don't have to take a federal exam that says they know those rules under Social Security disability law. Now, I'm sure that most and every attorney probably studies all of the rules. Some of them do take the exam that I did take, but they're not required. So a claimant wants to ask their attorney, have you passed that test? Have you taken that test? Do you know about, and a claimant's not going to know enough to ask an attorney if he knows enough.
Yeah.
But my point is, ask if they've taken that test. If they took that test, they have to know enough, or they wouldn't be sitting there, okay? I have had to pass that test. My colleagues have had to pass that test. So I'm not an attorney, but I have passed the equivalent learning curve and past experience to practice as an attorney in that court only. And so that's the only difference, is that we're both trained, we just have different credentials from a different area.
Perfect. And while we're talking about, does this apply to every single state? Like the same Social Security laws and everything apply to every state?
I can practice anywhere, I can help anyone anywhere, even if they're living in another country and they're a U.S. citizen, or they have an alien card and they want to live in another country and file for benefits, you still can. That's under the SSDI system.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So we've entered that. We kind of went over the process and how long it takes. Can a child qualify for SSI?
A child can qualify for SSI if the parents don't have a lot of assets. If the parents have too many assets, they cannot.
Okay.
Okay?
That's good to know.
If the child is not a child anymore, and a child is a young adult over the age of 18, then they are at their own economic unit, and yes, again, they can file for SSI. But the child can only qualify for SSI if the parents are also economically disadvantaged.
Perfect. That's a good thing to know. What about if you have children? Say you have lupus and you have children and you're applying for Social Security disability. Do you get benefits for your children, or is it just for yourself?
So you get benefits for your children also. It's called a Family Max benefit. And typically, if you go on to my account under Social Security, on the Social Security website, they have something called My Account, and they want you to sign up for that and register, and it gives you access to your earning record. Great thing to have, really important. Tells you when you're last insured, because it shows you that you're vested. It shows you how much your monthly benefit would be if you're disabled or when you retire. So basically, let's say hypothetically that earning record says that your benefit's going to be $2,500 a month. So that's the max. They won't pay over that. So that, and if you have children that are under the age of 18 when you become disabled and you get awarded, then they'll pay about half of your benefit, $1,200, to the kids. So you're actually getting $2,000, $3,200, $3,700 maximum total benefit each month from the Social Security Administration. So you're getting your $2,500, you're getting their $1,200, and that gets dispersed through all the kids. So if you have 3 kids, it gets dispersed $1,200 between each kid. Gets $300.
Okay.
Or $400. So there are some offsets that affect disability benefits, and I can answer that question now or later. if you get state disability, or if you get workers' compensation. And in a lot of cases, if you were a wage earner earning over 50,000, there will be no offsets at all. So everybody's so worried about having offsets to their Social Security disability. Most people have little to none, and you know, in the workers' comp system, they say don't file for Social Security because you're not going to be able to get it, and all that while you're going through workers' comp, and that's not the case. You want to file for Social Security as quickly as possible, at least within 5 years of you stopping work.
Okay. So I know that some people are confused with SSI and SSDI and Medicare.
Okay.
So is Medicare automatically included when you get approved for either of those, or is that a whole separate issue in itself?
So this one is a little upsetting to me. When you get SSI, you immediately get Medi-Cal, and most folks that are on SSI already have Medi-Cal. They have the PASS program. So they already have that insurance and they keep it. Mm-hmm. A person on SSDI may be on Medi-Cal, or maybe on whatever they can get, and they may be on their companies, or they may be on their spouses, whatever. But when they get awarded SSDI, let's say like today, I had a person was awarded back to 2014. So when you have an onset date, oh, I left work, I was sick, I couldn't work anymore after September 2014, Social Security doesn't pay any benefits for a 5-month window. So, you know, you go forward from September to January, and they would start paying this person who got awarded September 14. They would get benefits January 2015 would be their first month of benefits. So if you go 24 months ahead to January 17, that's when the Medicare benefit starts. So what they do for 2 years, rot or something, this is my personal pet peeve, I don't know. But after the 2 years, they get the Medicare benefit, and if they want to, they can spend a couple $100 and get a Medicare supplement program where they can have 100% coverage. I highly recommend, if you're very ill, the supplement programs, and there's many of them out there. Like Standard Insurance and
yeah.
AARP has fabulous ones.
Do they?
AARP is just the bomb.
That's good to know. Yeah. So on our list of questions too, we also have if you get SSI or SSDI, we asked that. Sorry, I'm reading the wrong.
It's okay.
What benefits are available to lupus patients? So I guess that would be just the essence.
So the lupus patients are, if they don't have any asset or much in the way of assets, they're eligible for Medi-Cal benefits, and they're also eligible for Covered California. Okay.
Okay.
When they get benefits under, when someone gets benefits under SSDI, they're eligible for Medicare. What benefits they depending on if they worked and paid into the system, they would be eligible for SSDI, and then family benefits if they've got a child under the age of 18 living with them. If that child's not living with them, in other words, they're divorced, the money's going to go to where the kids are living. So if that's just a caveat, the money follows the kids. If you're an SSI person and you have not worked 5 out of the last 10 years, or you haven't worked at all, then you have to file for the SSI program, and the most you can get out of that is $850. There is a homeless rate, that's like $925. So if you're homeless, yeah, lots of folks are homeless. It's very sad.
It is really. So let's see. What does it say right there?
Does it vary by state? Is the eligibility, are the benefits different by state?
Okay, the Social Security disability, the SSDI benefits, do not vary by state. Those are called Title II benefits, and they're the same whether you live in the United States or decided to go live in Mexico. But the fact that you've worked and paid into that system, you're vested. You have given Social Security enough money so that if you are awarded benefits, they'll give you some money out. SSI is different each state. It's depending on the state's economic wealth, or and the state's cost of living. Excuse me. It's mostly on the cost of living. So that in California, it's very expensive. You get $850. In Oregon, you might get $500 or $600. In Arizona, $500 or $600 is the most they pay under an SSI program. These are just guesstimates. but it's different in each state, the SSI that you get. So if you live in California, you get $850. If you move out of California and move to another state, your SSI will decrease. Because I think everybody's lower than California.
Yeah.
Sadly. But.
So going back to the children, somebody has asked, what happens when your children turn 18 if you're on SSDI?
Typically they kick them off and say that they're no longer disabled, which is sad because, you know, and that is if you haven't maybe had enough, kept them in the doctors, or there wasn't enough evidence for Social Security to see that they're just continuing. So when they turn 18, they can file for, number one, SSI, but the better thing to do, or to do both, is to file if one of your parents is disabled or is retired. You can file an SSDI claim under your parents' earning record. And what that means is that you're saying that you're a disabled adult child. So you file what's called a disabled adult child claim under your parents when you're over 18, saying that you were disabled since childhood. I have one right now. And you can only do that when your parents become of retirement age, or one of your parents is disabled. That's the only criteria to file that. Otherwise, you're probably a person who doesn't have a lot of assets because you've never worked and you're 18, and because you've been disabled under a child benefit. You can file for SSI if you don't have either one of those scenarios with the parent. A little complicated. You can always call me.
Do you, so you had talked about that you had forms on questions and...
So what I have is I have a listing form, a Lupus listing form. Takes the Lupus listing and gives the information to your doctor and asks him if you meet the criteria or not. And inside of that listing form, it shows all of the testing and all of the symptoms that you have met or have not met. And the doctor just needs to circle which ones you've met and not met. And if the doctor hasn't done enough testing, he'll see on your Lupus listing form, he'll see that he hasn't done enough testing to prove your disability yet. So if he doesn't know whether you're disabled from lupus, he needs to get to work and find out.
Perfect.
The second thing is that Social Security has doctors, but they're primarily looking at whether you have an impairment that's medically severe and that it compromises your function. So in addition to the listing form, I have a function report that asks your doctor 20 million detailed questions about your ability to function every day or not in a workplace environment.
And you'll give us these forms so that we can post them online for everybody.
Yeah,
to
hopefully if I'm not breaking any rules or things.
Oh, we'll find out for sure.
But what those are is just really effective tools. And the other thing is that I could produce them for, you know, each person if they contacted me, you know, if they have fun.
Perfect. And you can, if you're from out of state, you can still contact Deirdre.
Yeah.
She will, you know, help you out there.
Yeah.
We did get a question. Is being self-employed different than having an employer?
Yes. When you're self-employed, you have the choice to pay into the Social Security disability system or not. Most folks do when they just pay their taxes normally every year. But some self-employed folks don't pay into the Social Security disability system when they're self-employed, and thus they're not vested.
And a work-at-home job is the effects of SSDI. It's the same as being employed, right? If you're working if you're self-employed.
Working for yourself and you pay into the system, exactly the same rules.
Okay.
You just need to pay your disability taxes like your employer would take them out of your check. You need to take them out when you file your taxes each year. And like I said, it doesn't take a lot to just get vested.
Yeah.
A lot of money, but then you have to pay in $50,000 to $100,000 each year typically, just to get a pretty good residual rate. You know, I don't think Social Security disability is ever going to really give you enough to live on. It's a good supplement. It's better than, you know, it helps
better than
a lot.
Yeah. And we kind of answered this. Someone asked if when your kids turn 18, do you get to keep the extra money, and that benefit stops, right?
Yeah.
Once your kid turns 18.
Yeah. And there was a caveat for when they're in college, and if they're in high school still at age 18, There's a caveat that leaves it for like 6 months or so after that if they're age 18 and still in high school living at home.
Okay, perfect. And can you go over a little more in detail about the process, how long it takes,
Okay.
like if you have to attend a hearing?
Okay. So primarily, I wanted to explain what things help you get awarded easier. I mean, just inside of the 5-step sequential process. So there's 5 steps that Social Security has to go through to determine whether you're eligible or whether, in other words, to determine whether you're disabled or not, okay? So the first step is, are you working? And are you capable of working full-time? So if your answer is that, no, I'm not working, or no, I'm only working 2 days a week because I'm too disabled to work any more than that, then the answer to step 1 is no. Step 2 is, am I earning SGA? How much am I earning? And, you know, do I have the capacity to earn? Is my impairment going to be lasting 12 months duration? And then, is your impairment severe? So in the 3rd step, that's where your listings come into play, where you can just say, well, my function is bad, but I have such a severe condition that we don't need to prove what my function is because my condition is so severe that the function's just a moot point. So that would be a step. That's where I'm hitting. That's why when I give you forms, and I'm talking about forms, I'm hitting step 3 rule and step 5 rule. Step 3 rule is a listing rule, just medical severity. And then step 4 is, if you're over 55, can you do your past work? Or any work like it that's maybe easier within your limitations. If you get denied at any of these steps, you're out. Step 5 is, do you have the capacity to perform any work in the national economy full-time? Okay. So that's where that medical source statement comes in, that other document. So I hit 5 and 3 because those are the big guns. Mm-hmm. You get those out of the way and you're awarded. So Social Security has to go through this evaluative process in order to determine if you qualify. So if you're working, you're out. You know, if you're earning over $1,100 a month, you know, you're out. You can't do that until you aren't able to do that. So we have to wait till you get a little sicker. Sorry. If you're not sure whether you qualify or not, you can take that listings to your doctor and say, you know, we've done these tests and these tests, but on this form it shows that there's all these other tests that can be done, and you know, I'm really having a hard time at work. I don't know if I can keep going. You know, let's finish the testing. Let's do more testing. Let's find out how sick I am, or let's find the objective evidence to prove whether I need to be on disability or not. If we don't know, most doctors usually know without doing the testing. But if you don't do the testing, you can't show Social Security objectively that you've got an illness.
So you want to be as thorough as possible when it comes to your health.
So when you're any case and every case, you want all your medical records and you want all of the appropriate objective testing, which means x-rays, imaging, blood testing, CT scans, PET scans, nerve conduction studies. Whatever testing is required for that impairment that you have, you need to make sure you get it or you don't have a chance at all. It's the first thing I do. I make sure every claimant has the objective evidence they need to prove their case, and then I go talk to the doctor and you know, make sure we get medical records. But in those records, if there isn't evidence, objective evidence, you're swimming upstream. The doctor can talk till he's blue in the face about, you're disabled, and Social Security will not listen at all. He can write letters till he's blue in the face. You back it up with a listing and the facts on the listing why they're impaired, and you show that in the medical records, this is over. Game over. So each impairment may have a listing or not. A lot of people have a combination of impairments. So my job is to develop each one of those impairments. They might have lupus, they might have back problems, they might have cognitive problems, they can't think anymore, and they might have depression. So you need the appropriate specialist for each condition, and you need the appropriate testing for each condition.
Is depression actually considered one of the criteria?
12.04, listing 12.04 is depression.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. And I have, under the mental listings, under the listings of impairments on the internet, you go to the mental health listings, and there's 8 of them, maybe 9 now. And there's one for autism and psychosis and schizophrenia, depression, anxiety, 2 separate ones for depression, anxiety, cognitive disorders, and on. So it's very specific, and there's listings for heart disease and breathing diseases and missing limbs and spine disorders and knee disorders. Everything's on there. And if you're really sick and you're terminal, you have cancer, I can get you awarded immediately. There's something called compassionate allowance or a Terry case. You write to Social Security, you file that application, you say this person has impending whatever, and the case will be processed within 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh.
I've done a bunch of those.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't even.
So if you're terminal,
realize you
it's
could
really
do it.
important. And I'm sorry to, it's such a sad thing. It's just so, if you're terminal, it's just such a sad thing, it's hard to even talk about it.
Yeah.
But those are the rules. They help.
So the hearing, what about the hearing? If there is a hearing, what happens during that hearing process?
Oops, just poured water on myself.
Do you want a little napkin?
Yeah.
I'll grab you.
So the hearing, primarily in my cases, I try to not go to a hearing. I try to get the case awarded before a hearing, but some cases come to me at hearing level, and they haven't had a representative, or they've had another representative, and they've changed representatives, and I don't get to the case until the hearing level, and then I have to develop that whole case. So I have to make sure all those, of course, all that objective evidence is present, and all of the medical records are present, and I have to do that at least 3-4 months before the hearing. And what happens at the hearing is that the judge is making an independent decision, because Social Security and their doctors have already said that you're not disabled. They say that you can do some, stuffing envelopes, addressing envelopes all day long, and you only have to lift, 5 pounds or less, and you sit around all day long. So you can do that full-time job, and you're denied. So when you're going in front of the judge, of course, needs his objective evidence, he needs his function information, he needs all of the information I've already been talking about, but he or she is going to make an independent decision based on that evidence and your testimony. And so my job is to inform the claimant about the hearing process, and inform the claimant about all the questions that will be asked, and help the claimant to articulate concisely the truth. And that is why they can't work, what are the functional impairments, what is preventing them from going to work. Most folks want to be at work. I hear it over and over again, the sadness and the loss of not being able to be a productive citizen. It's heartbreaking. So I don't think the judges look at it that way, but what my job is to bring out every single impairment and talk about every single problem at that hearing, so that judge knows that claimant inside and out, and why that person can't work, and why they are where they are, in addition to the evidence, etc. So it'll be a fact-finding proceeding. It'll be somewhat informal, and they have all different kinds of judges, and they all run their court differently, and you just have to be ready for all kinds of things. And because I've been doing this for so long, I know all the things that I'm looking for. And when I go to a hearing, I'm looking for all of the things in the record that will show that this person is unable to work, in the objective evidence, in the statements, everywhere. Anything that I can pull a seed from to help that claimant during the hearing is what I do. And they'll have a vocational expert, sometimes a medical expert. I used to be a vocational expert, so the vocational expert is just asked questions about jobs from the judge and from myself, about a hypothetical person, can they perform any work or not, with certain scenarios.
So somebody asked, they're on Social Security right now and they're up for review. Okay. Is there anything they can do to help guarantee that they're going to keep their disability?
Yes, absolutely. So that's one of the things on my list for everyone to talk about. And before I answer that, I wanted to say that if you're over 55, your chances of getting awarded are twice as easy, because when you're older, it's harder for you to adjust to a new job.
Oh.
So just know that if you're over 55, shh, go sign up. No. But it's a lot easier. If you're under 55, then you have a much more to prove. It's harder. Sorry, ask your question.
It was.
Just,
I just lost it too.
I'm on Social Security right now, and I'm up for review. Is there anything I can do to guarantee
Okay,
that?
so those are called continuing disability reviews. Many representatives won't help people with those because it's almost impossible to get paid. All right, so I turn them down because I can't get paid. And some representatives will go through the financial hassle of setting up all the criteria for Social Security to let you get paid under that. But the best thing to do always is that after you get awarded, you continue to go to your primary important doctors once every 1 to 2 times a month. Okay, excuse me, I'm not saying that right. Once at least every 2 months. Keep in contact with your doctors, keep seeing them. You don't need to see them every 5 minutes, but you need to continue to document that the problems have not changed. You still are just as bad off as you were, if that's the truth. If you get better, great, you get better. And you want to go back to work. But the point is that if you don't have documentation showing that you still have the same impairments you had, and there's no improvement from when you got awarded, you're going to be denied. You can continue to get paid while you're denied, and you may have to pay all that money back if you can't prove your case.
Really?
Yes. There's a small window of time to ask for benefits if you're denied on a review. So in the review, you want medical records, and you want a function report from your doctor, which I have, that says specifically what your function continues to be. And then if the doctor has been giving decent medical attention, it should show a paper trail enough for the Social Security system to know whether you're still disabled or not, and you'll be just fine.
Okay.
So you won't need a lawyer, you won't need attention. Just do your homework after you get awarded and keep seeing your primary important doctors, your specialists.
Okay.
At least 4 times a year.
Okay. And then we did get another question too. If a condition advances since their initial SSDI determination, does the amount of money go up?
No.
No. So that's based on.
So if you get worse, you just got worse. The judge might move the onset date to later because you got worse.
Oh.
So you lose money. All kinds of things can happen. But you may have been severe enough at the beginning and you got worse, and the worser is just worser. So it depends on how the whole constellation looks. So I look at each case individually. Each case is its own puzzle that you have to develop. And that's the most important thing, is you want a representative that's passed their test and that's going to start developing your medical evidence from day one.
Yeah.
Have you got this objective testing in place? Have you talked to your doctor about the listings of impairments under your conditions? Has your doctor filled out a function report? Is your attorney facilitating you to get those things done? So those are the most important. Now, the criteria for just thinking about Social Security is, do you have 12-month duration of a severe impairment, you're not able to work and earn over $1,100 a month? If you're over 55, it's a little bit easier. If you're under 55, in other words, if you're between the ages of 55 and 65, you can file. So even if you're on retirement, you can, and you get early retirement, you can still file a disability claim. A lot of the Social Security offices have encouraged and said, well, you're retiring. And they said, yeah, because I can't work. And it's like, well, do you have a disability? And then they say, yes. So then they end up filing a disability claim too. So you can get your retirement, and then you can get awarded under disability, and they'll raise those benefits about $300 a month.
Wow.
So that's a caveat. Okay.
So I guess we're running out of time.
Okay.
So we wanted to have you tell everyone how they can get a hold of you.
Okay.
And then,
Okay.
Yeah.
Best way is 707-696-1505. That's my phone number, and I live in Santa Rosa, California, and I can help folks anywhere in the nation. And I understand all of the processes with getting folks paid disability benefits, the processes of all the paperwork. So outside of just getting through a hearing and understanding the Social Security rules. I know all of the paperwork disability rules too, so that's helpful. And folks are welcome to call me anytime with any kind of question.
And we've had one really quick question before
Okay.
or two really quick questions
Okay.
before we end.
And the first one is it correct that if you get Social Security disability benefits, your life insurance premiums will be waived? Is that correct?
I don't know anything about that. You're going to have to ask life insurance.
And then we had one more comment come up.
Yeah, well, one person said that she's been denied twice and she's heard that everyone gets denied twice.
No, I
Myth
get people
versus
awarded-
fact on that.
No, I get people awarded after 4 to 6, 8 weeks a lot. You just need to know what information you need. So yes, it's common if you have a representative that's doing their job. For the most part, in most cases, it should get adjudicated pretty quickly. But there's never a given. I've done everything right, and I've still ended up at hearing. That's just the way it is sometimes. And it's common. It's very, very common. But typically, you try to avoid that. And that's the quest, is we try to avoid it, and we can't always do that. So it is common, and it is frequent. It happens. So it's sort of the normal process. You need to file for a hearing, and you'll have a year to get the case developed when you
Perfect.
file for a hearing.
Well, thank you so much. So I am going to pop back in the camera really quick. I'm back. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. And so I just wanted to remind you that you can contact Deirdre. Anyone in any state, you can go ahead and contact her. We'll put her information on our website and on our Facebook page also.